Hey, remember that deluxe reverb that I gutted and rebuilt that I was so proud of last week, and all the care and attention that went into it, all the love, how good it sounded, how proud I was of the work, how much the owner was looking forward to getting it back. Well, FedEx dropped it. And they didn't just drop it a little. They dropped it hard. This thing was well packed, a lot of bubble wrap. It did not survive whatever the hell they did to it. I'm not quite sure how they managed this. Let me show you the pics. So let's take a look at the box here. The top corner there you see in the box, that cardboard was a little bit wet and very deformed in that corner, but that is not where the damage to the chassis was. The chassis was towards the bottom of this box, about a third of the way up vertically. And so where the damage is shown on this box, the chassis was not there. And where the chassis has issues, there's no damage to the box. The owner and I are suspicious that they might have opened the box, taken it out, dropped it, and then put it back in the box. Maybe because the box got wet. It's very strange. And when you see the next pictures, it's very odd to me that there's damage there on that back corner, both on the rear and on the top, but not on the lip. I'm not quite sure how that happens, where there's impact on two planes right there, but they don't affect the lip of the chassis there. Now, the damage you're seeing there can be clamped out fairly easily. It's not the end of the world, but it's certainly not very heartening. The front panel, also, right in the corner, got a dent. Now, the owner checked that dent does not extend to the chassis. It's just in the front panel. And I don't see how, unless they dropped the amp multiple times from great heights onto concrete, I don't see how they got these two different angle impacts unless they had the chassis out of the box, because there's no damage to the box in the area where this was. And this was wrapped in a lot of bubble wrap. The other damage, which indicates a tremendous amount of force was used, is that the output transformer and the choke are both at severe angles going down towards the end where those dents were. This would not have happened, could not have happened if this amp chassis was in the box, without the box also sustaining a lot of visible damage in the area where the chassis was. So I really think the box got wet and they took the chassis out to see what was inside. And that's not acceptable. Now, the good news is all this damage can be undone. The front panel can be taken off and reclamped, and it will look brand new. The other damage to the chassis at that corner can be clamped out. That's not a problem. If you take the choke and the output transformer off, just two screws each, those little flanges on the transformers can be straightened and made flush and everything put back together. And the transformers are still working. Let me tell you what, from the owner's perspective, how this whole thing went down, though. So he gets the amp, and it's obviously been abused in shipping, and he puts the tubes in it and puts it together, and there's an awful, awful sound. And he sends me pictures of everything. I talked to him on the phone, and I asked for very clear pictures. So here are the pictures he sent me of the inside of the chassis. I've made into a panorama view for you. And I went through every image very closely, magnified, to see if anything I had done was at fault. And I did not see any problem with the inside of the amp. So I called him and I stepped him through some troubleshooting stuff. And we found that the entire problem with the sound was that one of the original Ruby branded tubes that Fender had sent, one of the 12AX7s, was bad. Now, the tubes for this amp shipped in a separate box from the chassis and everything. And the tubes were not abused in transit. What happened was the Ruby that was noisy, when I had the amp, was in V5, the tremolo oscillator. He put it in one of the other locations, V1, V2, V4, which are in the signal path, and the entire amp was really noisy and it was terrible. So it was obviously a bad Ruby, and I missed it because it was the amp that was in the tremolo oscillator, and the tremolo worked because there's no audio there. So I'm sending him a couple of replacement 12AX7, just some used but good ones I have on hand that'll be fine for the tremolo. And the amp works, and everything I did to the inside held up through this huge shock treatment. So that makes me very happy. And I and the owner have contacted a very nice guy in the owner's hometown who builds custom amps. He doesn't really do repairs, but he does custom amps. But he knows the owner, and we're going to use the FedEx insurance money to pay him to straighten the panel and straighten out the transformers. Basically undo all the shipping damage, which is all purely pretty much cosmetic, fortunately, so that the owner doesn't have to ship the amp back to me for me to do that and then ship it back to the owner. Now, I would gladly do that, and I would not charge the owner. I am processing the FedEx claim for the insurance that was purchased for this amp because they have obviously not held up their end of the bargain. But hopefully they will pay that claim and we'll get him sorted out and all will be well. But once that noisy tube was removed, he's very happy with the sound of the amp. And I hope to have a follow-up set of photos for you guys once the other amp guy up in his town finishes the cosmetic repairs. Just remember, no matter how carefully you pack the amp, if they really want to mess you up, they will mess you up. Now let's just see if they honor the insurance claim.